Hello everyone, welcome to my Incredible Chess channel. From today, I'm going to start a new series which is dedicated for the end games, where I will be talking about the basic end games which you should be knowing, or you can say the name of this series I'm going to put it as Incredible Chess End Games. So the first end game which I would like to show you is the end game which was brought by our back, and this is the bishop end game. You can see this is a very important bishop end game which you should know. And I'll tell you one thing, like in one of my own games this kind of end game was there, and I was struggling a lot to win the game from the white side because I did not know the technique. So if you know the technique in the end game, it is very easy for you to convert better positions into winning positions. Okay, so here you can see that the pawn on f6 is a weak pawn. White's king is quite advanced, the pawn on f5 is also advanced, and the main thing is like both the bishops are of the same color, they are dark square bishops, correct? So and the black's pawn is on the dark square, so it is easy for white to capture the pawn. That's quite easy. And here also you can see the pawn can be captured very easily by playing bishop to e7 followed by bishop captures f6. But if you go for that thing, it will be a mistake, because the resulting endgame, means the pawn endgame which will be coming on the board, that will be a drawn endgame. I'll tell you why. Here of course black will play king e8, then if you capture on f6, we can capture on f6, like that is one of the ideas. But if you play like this, then you'll say like, oh, this is just winning position because white will be just pushing the pawn forward and the pawn will queen. I agree with you, I completely agree with you, but there is a slight problem is there. That problem is here, that black can play bishop to e3, which is a good move, and after this move, no matter what you do, here the pawn is still on the 5th rank, and this is the diagonal which we should be covering, or this is the diagonal we should be covering. So here bishop might go back to d h4 square, then we can stop the pawn with bishop to d4, and then if you play bishop g3, then we can wait here in this position. If bishop e5 is played, because that is the only way we can push the pawn, otherwise we'll never be able to push the pawn, because black will be putting the bishop on this diagonal sorry, and we cannot just keep playing the bishop. And here in this situation, after bishop e5 we can just simply capture and the opposition will be there, and no matter what you do, if you give the check, remember that you have to keep the king in front of the pawn in these first two squares. I have talked about the drawing technique also. I'll be giving the link of that drawing technique in the description as well as in the I section above. Do check it out, how to draw in the pawn endgame. So here you just need to play this. If white waits behind here in this position, you should wait only in these first two squares. You should not go to the left or right, okay? Because if you go to the left or right, you will be losing the game. I have talked about that thing in my video, but still I'll just tell you briefly. If you go here, then white will just play king to g6. You have to come here, and if the pawn comes on the 7th rank without the check, the pawn 100% queens, because we will be covering the queening square, and on the next move the pawn will queen and white should win the game. Okay, so that is the reason why we cannot simply go for the f6 pawn and capture the pawn, because it will be a draw. The main thing is like which we need to understand, the diagonal where the pawn will be restricted is quite long. So what is the drawing, what is the winning technique? The winning technique is like this, that the diagonal on which you will be blocking the pawn, it should be longer, then only you can draw. But the winning technique is like this, that if you want to win, the defensive diagonal should be maximum 3 squares. Okay, so if the pawn reaches the f6 or f7 square, then it can be stopped only from two diagonals. Sorry, it can be only stopped from from this diagonal or this. I'll explain that thing to you. So first of all, it's important for us to stop the opponent's king from coming in front of the pawn. So we'll play king f7 first. That is a good move. Now black might play this move. Now we play bishop e7. He might defend like this. We capture the pawn, and now of course we cannot capture here, because if he goes for this capture, the pawn is just going to queen, because we are covering the queening square. Okay, so black will not capture. Black will try to cover the diagonal so that pawn will not move forward. So he can play bishop to e1, so that he is trying to come here, but we can play bishop g5. Okay, now bishop c3 can again be played in this position. Now again, if you play this move, the bishop will again go for this, and we know that the diagonal is quite long because it has 1 2 3 4 5 squares. So we cannot do that thing. So we want to push our pawn forward, but for that we need to block the opponent's bishop. So for that we need to little bit maneuver the bishop and the king also. So what we will do, we'll not put the bishop on f6, we'll put the bishop on g7 square. For that we'll come to g5 square. Okay, now here king e8 might be played, then we play bishop h6 because we want to come here and block this bishop's diagonal. Okay, so we might play bishop d4, we play bishop g7. Now black needs to move the bishop away, so he has to play this move, and now we successfully plays f6. So now after f6, this is the long diagonal and this is the short diagonal. So what we want to do in this position is like we want to push black's bishop on this short diagonal. If we can manage to push the black's bishop on this short diagonal, then we will 100% win the game. How? I will show you. First of all, we need to block this long diagonal. For that, we need to play a little bit smartly. So black might just wait on this diagonal. We will give a check. The king cannot come here because of course we are going to win the pawn. So he'll play king d7. And now it's time for us to push this bishop on this diagonal. What to do? For that, we need to bring our own bishop on this diagonal. Correct. So how will you bring it? You can pause the video and think about it. Okay, so I hope that you have thought about it. You are right, our king needs to go to g8 square. If our king reaches the g8 square, then we will be able to play bishop to f8. Then the bishop needs to move, and then it will be forced to go on this h6 to f8 diagonal. So we'll play king h7. Step by step we are going. So we are kind of building a structure or the bridge, you can say. So here king e6 can be played, king to g8, and after this king f5, and after king f5 we'll play bishop to f8. Now bishop needs to move away from this diagonal, so it will move to bishop to d2 because of course it is going to come on this h6 square. So here we will just move the bishop away. Bishop h6 is forced, and now what will you do? We want to distract this bishop on h6 square. For that reason we will be playing bishop to e3. This is a very important move because once we play this thing, the bishop is not having any good squares. That is what I was telling you. The diagonal, the defensive diagonal should be just 3 squares or less than that. If it is more than 3 squares, then it is a very easy draw because you will always have a square to move your bishop, but here you cannot move the bishop. And now if you capture this, this is a simply winning position. We'll just queen the pawn and win the game. So I hope that you understood this maneuvering, how to do it, which are the things we should be avoiding. It's a little bit complicated, but I hope that I have explained this thing as best as I can. And if you have any doubts, do ask me in the comment section, and I'll be very happy to clarify those doubts maybe in the next video or in the comment section itself. And if you like this thing, then do let me know which kind of end games you would like to learn, which kind of end games you would like to explore also with me. So guys, do like this video, share this video with your friends also who would like to learn about this bishop technique, bishop endgame technique. And if you are new to this channel, do subscribe. Thank you very much. Bye bye.